Hi, welcome to another episode of the Neat Stack. This will be the last episode for season two, and what I would like to do is this: I would like to just close off this this season two with showing you how to use the Open API spec that we have written. If you recall, throughout season two, what we did was every time when we added a new resource or new API to the backend to Nest, we created we 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 updated our backend YAML file. So this file, okay. So this file contains the definition or documentation of the Nest of our Nest server, and every one of these path defines what you can and cannot do. For example, like what methods are, are permissible, and what are the results you get, and what are the data types, what are the response structure that you'll be getting back, and also what is the format of the data that it expects. And so far, we haven't really been doing a lot with it. In this episode, what I'll be doing is this: I'll show you two uses of this YAML file. The first use is to use it in a reverse proxy situation where we install the reverse proxy, where we install our YAML file in the reverse proxy and get the reverse proxy to validate requests as it comes in. So rather than getting the Nest application to validate the request validation is done at the reverse proxy or at the API gateway. In this situation, you have better control. You have a single choke point, into all the uh, in into the API into the backend service. The second use case that we're going to do is just we're going to use this backend API to generate a client. In this case, we'll be generating a Python client. So let's start this episode. As usual, I will create a new branch, and then let's check the branch. Okay, so the API, the reverse proxy I'll be using is caddy version 2. Oops, caddy version 2. Uh, caddy version 2 does caddy is a very stripped down lightweight reverse proxy. It doesn't support open API spec validation. What I have did is I've got a project, uh, I've got an open source project that, uh, and this open source project is a plugin. It is a module for Caddy, and you can build it together with Caddy, and this this module will perform the checking, will perform essentially this check. Okay, you can either download the module, download Caddy with my module, or any other module in here. Okay, so that's my module, or I've got the module built in here in the release. So if you look at the release, uh, I've built I've built uh, I built it for Linux, for Mac, and for Windows. All of them running 64-bit. So just uh, you know, download the zip file. Pick the binary for your operating system and put that uh, in your uh, in your in your execution path. Right. So I've done that, and uh, I've installed it here. So that's the caddy. So let's start by first of all very simply creating a simple reverse proxy first. But before I do that, I need to start my backend. So I'll do node this backend src main, and I'll start it with cause. Right. So let me just move them. Okay, let me create another window. So I've got three windows. I will create a caddy file. So caddy requires a configuration file. I'll create a caddy file inside deploy s02. The default file name is caddy file. I'll just use caddy file, and we'll just start off with something simple. we will start a reverse proxy on port 5000, and then I'm going to say I'm going to create a matcher that says whenever you see any request coming to port 5000, any request that you see that starts with API will be redirected to the local host 8080. Okay, so you do this, and API. Basically, what I'm saying is this: whenever any request that matches this, forward it to localhost 8080. Okay, so let's test this first. I will first of all run this guy by just saying caddy. So I'm inside the directory with the caddy file. So just say caddy run, and then notice that that the caddy is running. Now I'll just test it. I'll just first of all test the default first, which is port 8080 host 8080. I'll test the API kbots thread, and then so that is directly accessing the server, okay, my server at port 8080. Now we'll access it through the reverse proxy, which is port 5000, okay, and you get the same result. Okay, so now what we will do is this: we will now install the uh, our openapi spec. So remember the generic caddy doesn't have the plugin. So either you go to caddy and download it with my plugin, or you come to the or you go to my or you go to this repository, or go to my repository to download the caddy with the distribution uh, with the plugin built into compiled into caddy. So my plugin has in, introduces a new spec, sorry, a new directive. So that directive is called openapi, and the way we're going to use this is like this: we'll say route, okay, at open at API. Now we will say open API. Then we'll say open API, and then we will say where is the spec file. So the spec file is going to be in backend, and it will be backend YAML file. Oops. Okay, backend YAML file. So that's all you need to do for the time being. And if there is any error, okay, we can uh, my plugin has got a few of these placeholder, what caddy called placeholders, to report error. So there's two. One is the error, the exact description of the error, and the other is the status code. So we can do this. We can say handle errors. Okay, so handle errors, uh, respond POND, respond at API, and we will say, this is the string, the error string. I can say like resource, the this uh, this placeholder is provided by caddy. So it's HTTP request URI. Okay, and then maybe we can and then I'll now use my error code, open API error. Okay, so that's my error, and then we can say, if there's any error, what's the status code that we're going to return. I will use the status code that is produced by my plugin, and what do we do? Okay, after we have sent the response back, we close the response. Okay. By the way, the handle errors and the response, these are part of the caddy standard directive. So let's go back here and we'll restart caddy again. Now with 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 my plugin. Oops. Okay, so it's failed, and the reason is because there is an error in the in my in the in the YAML file. Okay, so it's saying that the YAML file there is an unsupported data type date type. So let's have a look at this. So it's a date type. Okay, so there's a mistake here. So it should be date time. Date time. Okay. I wonder why, when I was doing that, the open validator didn't manage to spot it. Okay, let's try this again. Let's try running caddy again. So now the server has started. Notice that it's read my openapi spec, and it's found one development server. So let's try checking this again. Okay, so if we now run the just to make sure this is the standard, I'm going direct to the server instead of going through the through the open API through the reverse proxy. And now we will try and go through the proxy. Okay, so if we do that, we get an error. Okay, so this is the this is the error that is reported. Okay, so this is my message, right, from caddy. Okay, so URI, and the reason is because it is saying that the error does not match any server. By default, the validator will actually validate a server. So what is the server? Is this thing. Okay, so that is my server. The server is localhost port 8080. And if you're going through a reverse proxy, right? Let's go back to the diagram. If you're going through a reverse proxy, the the request that is coming in no longer goes directly to port 8080. It is going through the reverse proxy, and the reverse proxy is port 5000. So that's why it is actually failing. The server is actually the 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 plugin is actually stopping requests going in because the the server the the valid servers is actually not listed here. So to make this work, what we need to do is this: we need to go. we- let's call this reverse proxy and change the 8080 to 5000. Okay, and let's start again. Now let's try running this guy again. 5000, and now we get our result. So it's actually going through the proxy. Okay, and you notice that here, it's saying that what are the valid list of, what are the list of valid servers. There's a lot of other things you can do as well. I won't demo. I won't show them here. You can just try, go through documentation and try. If you got any questions or you find any issues, just list them here. Just one other thing: if you do not want to validate the servers, just change the configuration. Uh, just change the caddy configuration here. Okay, so you can say validate servers false. Okay, and then start again. Notice that server validation is now disabled. Okay, and then it should still run. Oh, okay. Okay, so now we got another problem. The problem here is how my API is written. So let me just quickly go that here. I've actually written it sort of not the proper way. Notice that my server has got API, has got slash API, right? And the path actually doesn't have API. So when I disable the server checking, uh, the it the incoming request resource path doesn't actually match any of this because the request actually has slash API. So to fix that, right, what I should probably do is this. The proper way to do is this: remove the API from here and add the API to here, like this. Okay. So those are all the resources. I'll stop caddy and start it again. So now let's try running that again, and I should now get back my resource. So this is the actually the sort of like the proper way to do it. Okay, so that's one way of using the Open API validator. Is to allow is is to set it on the reverse proxy or any of the Open API gateway that supports OpenSpec validation. That's the first use case. The second use case that we can do is to use the Open API to generate client. Okay, so in this case, what I'm going to show you is this. I'm going to show you generating Python a Python client. So the Open API, sorry, oops, why is it this? So I got PNP. Let me, sorry, let me just create another directory. Where am I? Okay, so let me create another directory. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Open API generator, and I'll list. These are the list of front end and back end that is supported. These are the server, so it will generate a skeleton for this type of server. For example, like Jax RS. Sorry, you know, for generate a backend server for the Play framework, or for Scala or for Spring, and also for some of the clients, it can generate clients for Angular, using the fetch API. In our case, we're going to generate it using Python. And so what we'll do is this: we'll open API generator. We'll say generate. These are the list of commands. We'll say open API generator generate minus I, which is the input. The file is in backend, and then we want to generate Python, the Python client. So these are the list of files that is created. Now, what I'll do is this: I will create a virtual environment to run our Python client. Not to run, but to write our Python client. If you're on Windows, if you've got Anaconda installed, you can use Conda. Python 3. Okay, so now I'll activate the environment. Okay, and then now I will install the requirements. I'm also going to install JDI for Vim for code completion. Right. Okay. So now we are done. So let's have a look at what is generated. So notice that it's generated a README file, and it tells you, how to use the API. So this is the documentation. There is a slide. There's a simple example here, and this is the list of all the API supported by the client. Notice the name here, this name here, delete kboard user by user ID or get kboard. This thing actually comes from the operation ID. Okay, so for example, notice that the operation ID get kboards by user ID, get kboards by user ID. Python uses a snake case instead of the camel case. So the OpenAPI generator generated the API, based on Python's naming convention, which is snake case. What I'll do is I'll just show you a simple example of how to how how to use this API. So I'm creating a file called main. Okay. And then the first thing we'll do is this. According to the documentation, we need to import the Open API client. Again, all these are documented. If you do not know, just have a look at the README file. Okay. Have a look at example here. So after you're imported, you need to create a configuration. So config, right? Open API client configuration, and then we will specify the host. Okay, the hosts are the I'm going through the reverse proxy rather than directly to my Nest server. So HTTP localhost port 5000. Okay. Then the next thing we will do is this: we will create the client itself. So I'm going to import in from Open API client API import in, import what? Let me have a look. Oops. Import import default API. Default API. And so this is what you do. Go with Open API client API client. You pass in the config, okay, as client. So you'll create an instance of this, and then we assign it to client. So now we will load the client. After that, we'll create an instance of the handle to the client. Okay. So the client is this, right? That's the connection to this. So you just say handle equals to client, sorry, default API, default API to pass in the client. So that returns handle. Now we can let's call the API kbots thread. So we can go response result equals to handle. Okay, we want to get kbot by user ID, right? And we'll pass in the thread, let's say thread. Then we just print out the result. So let's run this guy. Right, so that's the result. Now this is very simple. So this is the second use case for uh, for, for the Open API spec is to allow you to ability for you to generate different kind rather than using just generic HTTP. You can use the uh, you can use the Open API spec to generate a client, and then just use the client. In your program, whether it's Java, Python, and it supports lots of languages. You can look at this, right? So for as far as the client is concerned, it supports lots of languages like TypeScript, Scala, Ruby, Rust, Go, etc. Okay, so this is the end of this episode and the end of season 2. I'll probably take a short break and then come back with season 3. Season 3 will be the final season where we will add in, where we'll do things like adding in authentication as well as looking at some of the more advanced Angular features like Angular Universal. Till then, stay safe and I'll see you next year.